Your voice is so mellifluous.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the January 30th Town Council meeting. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting was provided on December 10th, 2024, by sending written notice and electronic notice to the Courier News and the Breeze, posting on the website and the bulletin board in the municipal building, and filing with the township clerk. May we have the roll call, please?
Councilman Kirsch? Councilman Cordilla?
Here.
Councilman Pedroso? Councilman Ring? Here. President Nogales?
Here. I would be remiss, Councilman Kirsch sends his regrets. He's away on business, but he promises that when he returns for the next meeting, he will gladly provide his individual aspect on affordable housing. Councilman Cordilla, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Stand if you're able to, please.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Minutes for approval. We have the minutes of January 16th, regular session, which was circulated. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at them? Yes. And if so, could I have a motion for the minutes, please?
I'll make that motion.
Motion second. All those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. The closed session for January 16th will circulate at some additional time, some future time. Okay, thank you. Township Council reports. Could we begin with Councilman Ring, please?
Certainly. It's going to be a brief one, but had the opportunity to attend the Somerset Patriots end of the year celebration last week. I know they're here. We're going to be speaking further about them, but an outstanding event that they held. And then a couple days later, attended and swore in the officers of the Martinsville Rescue Squad during their annual reorganization meeting. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councilman Cordilla, please.
I witnessed Councilman Ring having a nice time at the Patriot festivities. And I also witnessed Councilman Ring swear in the officers of the Martinsville Rescue Squad. And I have to say, both activities were nice, and I tip my hat to all those who volunteer for Bridgewater Township.
Thank you. My report is as follows. I also attended the annual Patriot baseball team celebration, and as the Yankee affiliate AA ball team continues to win the hearts of Bridgewater baseball fans. The team and the stadium, which are owned by the very philanthropic Califer family, continues to be a mainstay of entertainment for the community. I plan to attend the Lunar New Year celebration sponsored by the Bridgewater Chinese American Association, scheduled for this coming Saturday at the Bridgewater Senior Center. This is an energetic celebration of song and dance. The Lunar New Year, which this year is the Year of the Snake, includes massive festivals throughout Asia and the world. Over the past weeks, I have participated in numerous conferences and phone calls as our town fine-tunes our response to the state, which is due tomorrow. By the end of tonight's meeting, this council will commit to an affordable housing build-out over the next 10 years. This has been a stressful time for the administration, for the council, and our consultants as we address an arbitrary and blatantly unfair number forced upon us by the state and the courts. Much more about that in a few minutes. In case you have not heard about the musical chairs in New Jersey politics, let me try to provide some insight. Douglas Steinhardt, who represents the 23rd Legislative District in the New Jersey Senate, has been nominated to serve as the New Jersey State Attorney General by the Trump administration. Upon Steinhardt vacating the Senate seat, there is a possibility that Assembly Minority Leader John DeMaio, who represents our town, will succeed Steinhardt. If that happens, then DeMaio's Assembly seat becomes vacant. Our very own Mayor Matthew Mensch has publicly announced his intention to run for the vacated DeMayo Assembly seat. There you have the cliff notes on what's happening in politics. We're now up to Mayor's report, please.
Thank you, and whether those people may cry or rejoice, I am still here at the moment and may continue to be here, but we'll see how that fun stuff plays out. A couple items to address before we get to the Patriots proclamation. I want to first note that this month is Maternal Health Awareness Month, and there's also Maternal Health Awareness Day on January 23rd, and I was able to go over to Somerset Hospital to tour the maternity ward and meet with the nurses and one of the doctors over there who are the primary caregivers for those who are in the OBGYN unit over at Somerset Medical Center to learn about the services that they have, learn about what they provide for our residents in the area. And it was phenomenal. It's a great facility. The staff was great. And we were just thrilled to be able to thank and give a proclamation to those workers to thank them for everything that they do to care for the mothers and babies that are delivered in Somerset Medical Center. So in particular, thanks to Jack Morris for helping to arrange that, Chief Administrator Blouse and her team, the Chief Nursing Officer, Michael Valendo and his team, and the entire staff. There's, just for everyone's education, the hospital's maternity unit helps facilitate about 800 births a year. And this year, Robert Wood Johnson Somerset, they were telling us, is celebrating its 125th year of caring for the community here in the Somerset County area. They're going to be doing events all year, including, we're going to see how we can match up some of the connections to Bridgewater with the hospital. And I'm told the original hospital building is still standing and is down there in Somerville. I don't think I realized which building it was until after the meeting there. So along those same lines, there was a blood drive that was held by 3 of our residents and done in consultation with Robert Wood Johnson in New Brunswick, Casey Cattell, Brianna, Brianna, I'm going to butcher the name, Zarenkowitz, and Minal Patel. This was hosted at the Bradley Gardens Fire Department. Thank them for hosting and waiving their fees. And we had folks, we made it available for any staff members who wanted to go and donate blood that day to help with raising blood for maternal awareness, for maternal health, that they could do that. And Casey was, who was one of the women who helped run that event, that was dear to her heart, based on her own personal story. And so we were happy to support that, and glad that we were able to get residents out to raise blood. And they raised, I have my notes here, they collected 82 units of blood. So it was a great success for them. So thank you for all that work. And last, we have applications for the 2025 Citizen Police Academy. We're going out the first week in February. And so folks should, if you're interested, it's a fantastic program. If you've talked to anybody who's participated in it, it's always been, we got a lot of positive feedback on it. It's a great opportunity to learn a little bit more about policing, our community, and different ideas of understanding what our police department does and building connections between our residents and our police officers. And also mentioned 2 other things. We had the evaluation of the Municipal Emergency Management Program, which is reviewed, Bridgewater is reviewed by Somerset County every year since 2017, and that ensures compliance with all the different OEM and disaster mandates and making sure we're prepared for whatever may come. This year, Bridgewater scored a 106.8 out of 100. So not only did we meet all the criteria, we actually exceeded it with the bonus credits and extra credits and everything else. So we're very proud of the emergency management team who helped make sure that we are fully prepared, something that's near and dear to all the council members who were sitting on this dais for their portions and their part in the emergency management response of our community. I guess last but not least, we are going to be engaging in the next step of the affordable housing mandates that are thrust down upon us from the New Jersey Supreme Court, which has created a constitutional requirement to provide affordable housing, which has now been expanded and beyond what it was ever intended by the Supreme Court. Under that process, in the law that was passed, every municipality must accept a number. You have to pick, you don't pick it, it has to be done by, with the help of your professionals, and using the criteria that the legislature has set forth. So we don't get to pick the criteria and say there's better criteria to help us come up with a more accurate number. We have to use the number, the criteria that they gave us. And if you don't submit a number by the end of the month based off of our own analysis and comparing it to the DCA analysis, then you lose your immunity from builder's remedy lawsuits. So this is not a situation where we can simply, whether we disagree with the methodology, whether we disagree with the requirement, if you don't have a number, then you do not have builder's remedy immunity. You're still required to provide affordable housing, so you can't just say, we don't want to do it, because if you do that, then somebody can come in, sue the township, and then rather than us get to choose where and how the affordable housing is built, then the developer who is bringing the developer's remedy lawsuit, basically they get to force it where they want it. So this is the first step of a year-long process where tonight the first part of it's going to be determining a number. There's a process whereby interested parties can review the number and either say that they agree with us or not. At the end of that process, we'll get, quote, the number. Then we'll have a few more months to develop a plan for implementing that number over a 10-year period of time. And then once the plan gets approved, and interested parties can weigh in and say they like it or don't like it in the court system, once the plan's approved by the court, then we have to actually implement it, whether by changing densities in our planning, whether it's by overlay zones, whether it's by public-private partnership projects. There's a number of ways you can do it. So this is the first step in that process tonight, which will take us over a year to finally implement. But it's unfortunate, as I've stated publicly before, we don't agree with the law that's been set forth in terms of what criteria they're using. They're double counting units. They don't give us credit for units that are being built in areas that are exempt from building. It overinflates the numbers, and it doesn't give enough credit to what towns actually can manage. But be that as it may, step one is tonight with adoption of the number. So those are my comments in my report for this evening. But on a happier note, we have a phenomenal opportunity tonight. I have a proclamation which we will give for the Patriots organization. I'm sure everybody in this room has been to a Patriots game at least once, if not dozens and dozens and dozens of times. And I know as father of three kids, it is such a phenomenal experience going over to the Patriots, whether you're a huge baseball fan like I am, or whether you're somebody who just wants something to do with your kids on a spring or summer night. It's great. I don't know if everyone appreciates how lucky we are to have that kind of amenity here in Bridgewater. And when you couple that with the partnership with the Yankees, that allows us to see some of the biggest stars in baseball right here in Bridgewater for $12 a ticket or $15 or $8. It's not that expensive. Thank you, by the way, for keeping it that way. But you can afford to go. And for those people who can't afford to go or can't afford the time to go into Yankee Stadium or go into a major league game because of whether it's money or travel or time, to be able to come here and see those players right here and to be able to spend a night out with your family. All of us were at the celebration this past week, and it struck me that the absolute common theme when I heard everybody speak who was part of the organization was family, and how important family is to the Patriots organization. Of course, the Califer family, but the whole organization. It's not just the family members. It's the same faces that we've seen here for years, whether it's at the game, saying hello to folks, whether it's the staff members that are there. And to me, when I take my kids, when I go to the Patriots, it's usually a family event. And so it's you create that family experience for just hundreds and thousands of families that have sat in the stadium and cheered on the team, hopefully cheering us as opposed to the visiting team, but who have been there. You create memories for families in our community, and that is something that is priceless, and we cannot thank you enough for doing.
Coming from a Mets fan, that actually.
I'm a Yankees fan, Tim. I know what you're talking about. I have a proclamation. We'll go down. I'll read it, and we'll bring everybody up, and we'll take some pictures. So in addition to just my comments on the Somerset Patriots organization, I'm not the only one, or all of us at the dais here are not the only folks who have recognized the excellence of the organization, which received its own award this year for being an outstanding organization within all of minor league baseball. So I'll read the proclamation. I'll ask you guys to come up and we'll take a picture or two. Whereas the Somerset Patriots, the Double-A affiliate of the New York Yankees, have consistently demonstrated excellence, dedication, and a commitment to the community and the sport of baseball. And whereas the Somerset Patriots have been recognized with the prestigious 2024 Fritas Award, an honor given to the finest minor league baseball team in the nation, highlighting their outstanding operations, fan engagement, and community outreach. And whereas the award celebrates teams who exemplify integrity, leadership, and innovation, and the Somerset Patriots have undoubtedly achieved these qualities year after year, bringing pride and joy to our region. Whereas the Somerset Patriots not only excel on the field, but also inspire countless fans, support local businesses, and serve as a source of joy and unity for our entire community. And whereas the success of the Somerset Patriots reflects the hard work, dedication, and passion of the entire organization, from the players and coaches to the front office staff, sponsors, and countless volunteers who make their achievements possible. Now, therefore, it be resolved, I, Matthew C. Mensch, Mayor of Bridgewater Township, do hereby recognize and honor the Somerset Patriots for winning the 2024 Fritas Award and extend heartfelt congratulations to the entire organization for this well-deserved accolade. Your commitment to excellence both on and off the field continues to be a beacon of pride for all of us, and we look forward to many more seasons of success and community impact. Thank you all. Come up and we'll...
We're proud to have the Califer brothers with us. Jonathan is the bearded one. Josh is the unbearded one. And they are the co-chairman of not only the park, but the team.
Just briefly, Mayor, thank you for those wonderful words. As a dedicated baseball fan and dedicated Bridgewater resident and leader, you do know the team well, and it was captured perfectly in that proclamation. Administrator and esteemed council members, thank you very much. I have a brief proclamation of my own to make, and that is that we are particularly proud of this award. Baseball America is the industry trade newspaper, and I am so proud of the fact that they have recognized the amazing team behind the team and that their hard work and dedication is being recognized by such an esteemed publication. So one more round of applause, if I may, for the amazing guys. And one last proclamation before the pictures, and that is we are incredibly proud also to be this community's home team, and it is a responsibility that we take seriously. The mayor mentioned affordable family entertainment, and that is a big part of that responsibility, and it's a mission that we intend to uphold. So thank you all. Hope to see you at a game this season or 3.
Yeah, you gotta go. No choice. No choice.
Mr. President?
Now up to item number 9 on the...
Howard?
Mr. President, if I could, Mr. Corsini and I were talking about a topic that he had something to just brief the council on and distribute. If we could just take a moment.
Yes, this is on a part of the administrator's report, although since the mayor gave it tonight, we skipped over it, which is perfectly fine. So as you guys are aware, periodically when I stumble on a reference in your code that is outdated, Council President Norgalis often wisely says our ordinances are organic document, living document, and I occasionally stumble. You may recall years ago I stumbled on a Prohibition era reference. Tonight, a little bit more recent, an outdated code reference from 1949. The statutory citations are long expired. I try to fix these things as I find them, as we stumble on them. So I'm going to give to you tonight an ordinance. This is in the municipal court. You're reappointing your judge tonight. As I prepared that resolution, I found this reference. It's in the municipal court portion of your ordinance. It's merely a two statutory citations that are long expired. The statute doesn't exist anymore. The ordinance I'm going to provide you updates that provision, removes the erroneous reference. I would like to get this on for the next meeting. Administrator asked me to give it to you tonight, so that could be effectuated, because I know you guys like to hear about these one meeting in advance. So it's the minorest of changes, but a change to make our code look a little shinier. So.
Give it to Grace and we'll put
Yeah,
it on.
well, I'm gonna give it to Grace and a copy to each of you as well. So I thank you, Council President, for that. And that is all I have.
Okay, we are now moving to item number 9, which is the meeting open to the public. Members of the public wishing to address the council on any matter will be allowed 3 minutes to speak unless there are unusual circumstances. Could I have a motion to open to the public, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Signal by
Aye.
saying aye. Aye, we are open to the public. Ladies and gentlemen, anyone wishing to address the council, please come forward. There's a sign-in sheet there. And share what you like. Our frequent flyer.
Good evening, President Norgalis, council members, mayor, Grace. I will learn how to say your name one of these days. I'm Joan G. Geiger. I had forwarded to the council a series of questions I have about one of the resolutions that is on tonight about the affordable housing, and I just wanted my questions to be placed on the record to help you be able to answer them. And I'm going to phrase them in terms of the whereases. So with respect to the fifth whereas, it's my understanding, and this has changed a little bit from what I sent you, that in the past we have not had litigation relating to the builder's remedies and exclusion zoning litigation. We've been able to avoid that, and I just want a clarification if in fact that is the case. Regarding whereases number 6 and 7, I would like some information from the council and the mayor as to what you see as the disadvantages of compliance with A4, as well as what you see as the advantages of compliance with A4. I think you have to do a compare and contrast to be fair. With respect to the 15th whereas, by my crude math, if the 417 number holds, then Bridgewater's share statewide would be about 1/2 of 1% statewide. And if your calculations are different as to the state's total annual requirement, I would like to know what your calculations are, and if you feel that the state's calculations are not fair, then what is fair? I assume 0 is not the number that you think is fair. Well, maybe you do, I don't know. With respect to the 16th whereas, what was the prior annual number imposed by COA, and what % was that statewide? With respect to the 19th whereas, it was my understanding that you have already allocated the funds, or most of them, for the 130 units, and that was mostly for repairs and renovations, and I just would like some clarifications if that is in fact the case. With respect to the whereas number 24, if there are any plans for further adjustments, what are they? And you may not know yet, but I assume that's in the works. And with respect to reducing Bridgewater's share from 474 to 417, and assuming that that is fair, and further reducing it as indicated in the 24th whereas, assuming that is also fair, once that is done, can any of you or all of you make a pledge to Bridgewater residents that you will consider the costs of litigation referred to in whereas number 25 and weigh that against the benefits of affordable housing to the community? And finally, will you consider some innovative solutions to the affordable housing requirements, such as accessory housing units? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Geiger. I'm going to offer a couple of comments here before the next person comes up. I'm going to start at the back end. One of the things the governor mentioned in his State of the Union address was accessory housing units, which permitted an additional smaller building to be built on an existing lot, and the ownership would go with I'll call it the big house. Our current ordinance does not permit this type of structure, and absent moving forward. Now, it's possible that, and it's pending before the Senate and the Assembly, and it may become law at some point. It looks like the governor is pushing it, but right now, we do not have that as part of our ordinance. If I go back, and I have the list of them, she was kind enough to send it to me, and I would say that we have worked very hard for over a period of months to come to a number that we would not necessarily feel comfortable with, but less uncomfortable. The number that the state has come up with, the 474, and obviously we're proposing 417 for council action and administration support, is hard. We have been compliant in round 3. We were disappointed that all of a sudden they took the round 3 results and threw everything out the door and started with a new process. Whether it's fair to them, I don't know what we spent on litigation years ago in other rounds, and quite honestly, probably don't care to go back and spend the time to look for those numbers. We want to do the best job we can for our 46,000 residents by protecting them from from issues. The mayor mentioned builder's remedy. If we do not file a response by tomorrow, we have been told that we almost instantly then would fall victim to a possibility of a builder's remedy. And basically that means a builder finds a piece of property, takes us to court, and says Bridgewater is deficient in its affordable housing, and therefore I, this developer, I want to help them. And I'm going to offer to put in 100 or 200 or whatever, because don't forget, nobody builds, with very few exceptions, just plain affordable houses. You'll see in the agenda tonight that we have one example like that, but builders want to build buildings to make money. And so there is generally a percentage of the building, of the number of units that they will say are affordable. In the past, it has varied anywhere from 10% to 20%. Very few people offer anything above 20%. But what that means is to get 20% affordable, you have to build 4 times, 5 times that amount to get to it, which means much more development. Our mayor and our council folks, on behalf of our residents, have said, we want to control development. We want it to be rational. We want it to be reasonable. And unfortunately, some of the constraints that come down from the state preclude us from doing it. As far as the money for the 130 improvements, we have a fund for that. We don't allocate it until it is necessary, but when it is necessary, we do it. We have a number of homes where people need roofs, they need electrical work, and if their financial situation is such, we try to help them out. Now, I've been long-winded. Is there anybody else who would like to offer a comment here?
The only comment, I could talk about this topic all night long, but just without belaboring the points, it is the biggest topic on our agenda tonight, and quite frankly is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, issues overall facing municipalities in New Jersey. Just to make sure everyone understands from the public, when the Supreme Court years and years and years ago said that there is an obligation to provide affordable housing, they had used the term, every municipality has to provide its fair share. And over 40 years, there's been all kinds of arguments about how do you determine what's fair, what numbers do you use to figure out what's proper, what's not proper. And obviously, just people have been arguing about that, again, since the time it was first issued. They look at it in regions. So I know some of the questions were talking about the state. I mean, I think there is a state number, but for purposes of what we look at when it comes to affordable housing compliance for round 4, they divide the state up into regions. And the idea of the Supreme Court case was that if each municipality only looked at its borders and didn't consider the needs of the area, well, then you could have a situation where there's no ability to provide affordable housing because every town just worries about itself. So that's what the Supreme Court said. We're not going to let towns do that. So they look at it in terms of regional need. Originally, this was because of kind of the white flight from the cities. Jobs were moving out of the cities, but there was no housing for people who then wanted to work in those jobs. So there was a problem because you had the workers in the cities, jobs outside, and that was an issue. What we've seen over the past couple decades is that trend has changed. In the 2000 to 2010 decade, it was the growth between the cities and the suburbs was basically even. Last 10 years, we saw a growth where you're now having development and jobs going back to the cities. But the law still exempts cities from a requirement to do affordable housing. So what winds up happening is our region, I believe, includes New Brunswick or Trenton, I forget which, or both, Chris might know, New Brunswick. So as an example, if anyone's been to New Brunswick recently, you see there's some great apartments in New Brunswick or some great new projects there down there. There's development going on there organically. They have developers coming in, they're taking the Rutgers area, they're improving the entire community in New Brunswick. When the state looks at our region's numbers, they take a look at growth. That's one of the factors. So New Brunswick, the growth in New Brunswick gets factored into determining future growth. But New Brunswick is exempt from having to do affordable housing because they look at the various income and numbers and say, well, that's not fair. They already have more need than they can amount to, so we're not going to make them do it. But part of the problem that you have is that we're also not getting credit for the numbers that they are building. So they're going to build housing anyway, not because they're forced to, just because they're doing it. Yet we don't get credit for those numbers. So we still have to build units in our region, even though those units are being built by New Brunswick, which is already exempt from affordable housing. So they look at the numbers as a whole, answer the question that was asked. So I don't know what the answer about what percentage in terms of overall, our portion of overall for the state, but they look at it from a regional perspective. And what will now happen is all these towns are going to file their own numbers, and then the special arbitrator by the court will essentially allocate. It could go higher, it could go lower. They'll evaluate what you can build, what you can't build, and they'll come up with a final number to meet the region's needs as determined by the state. In round 3, we were the first municipality to get certified by our county judge, affordable housing judge. So there was no, if I recall correctly, there was no affordable housing builders remedy lawsuits against the town in the 3rd round. We proactively filed a declaratory judgment action, which gave us, the court certified our plan. We were the first town to do that in the county. And as a result of that, we did not have any litigation costs from affordable housing. I don't know, back in the 80s or 90s, I don't know whether or not there was any litigation at that point in time. But for 3rd round, we did that. So the question about advantages or disadvantages with the law, I mentioned a little bit earlier, but if you participate in the process, you are protected the whole way through. So you can't have a builder's remedy lawsuit. You're protected through that entire process. And theoretically, you come out of it quicker with less costs than if you were litigating it in court. That's the concept. I have a lot of concerns over how the program is structured, the ability to appeal it. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a whole bunch of lawmaking and rulemaking that seem to be outside of the statute. I have a lot of concerns about the process. But if the answer about the biggest disadvantage, if you don't participate in the process, then you still have to comply with the law, which is the statute on the books that tells you how to calculate your housing needs, but you no longer have the protection of the process. Presumably, a court's not going to look at you as a great actor if you've decided to just thumb your nose at it and not participate. And then we risk being able to not determine our own fate when it comes to how to build. The issue when it comes to fair or not fair is also not talking about the 417 or 474 units. As Council President mentioned, it's how do you account for that? And if it was just 417 units and that was it, it's still a lot of units, but it's in a town that's 6,000 people. It's probably manageable. The problem is it's not just 417 units. It could be as high as 2,400 units if you were doing it through traditional private builder projects. And so now you're dealing with 2,400 units and then all the infrastructure, the people, and everything else that goes with it. So the plan that we will attempt to create is going to have to try to balance all the different tools at our disposal. So some of it may be traditional builder sponsored projects, and we just try to find the right density in the right locations for the right type of mix of units. It could be projects like housing for developmentally disabled individuals. You could be housing, like Habitat for Humanity housing. You can do public-private partnerships where if we own land, you can have a company that comes in and builds it all-inclusive, like Centerbridge. If people are familiar with Centerbridge, you could have a project like that. So it's a mix. That's the plan. That's the important part. The number is less important than the plan that you create because that's what's going to guide the town over the next 10 years. So
Until June to file that.
we have until June. So once the number gets certified, you have to work. We've been working on this, just as part of it, and even starting to come up with ideas for the plan since December of 2023. So even though this moves a little bit quickly, we've been working on this, we didn't know the exact number, but we knew we were going to have to come up with solutions for affordable housing in terms of figuring out what is the right mix, what areas of what property is either available for us that we own, that private developers or private property owners may own. How do we figure out, do you put in a lot of units on one project and make it more dense there? Do you make it less dense but spread out? Those are all the considerations that go into figuring out how do we create a plan. And the plan doesn't require, it has to provide a reasonable opportunity for them to be built. So it doesn't say, town, you have to go out and actually build yourself and pay the money to build the units, but we have to make sure there's enough property available, there's enough opportunities available so a developer or private entity or a nonprofit can come in and ideally, according to the law, over the next 10 years, would provide those units. So that's all the things that we're trying to balance. And this is step one, which is the number. And we've done an analysis. We've hired professionals to look at one of the factors that they use to try to figure out your number is your ability to build. And so what they do is they look at vacant land. And that's been the biggest problem that towns have faced, is that the vacant land analysis has been incredibly over-inclusive. So when the state ran these numbers, there's examples of towns using, where they use the front lawn of a municipal building, medians on a highway. In Homedale, it was PNC Art Center was included. In Bridgewater, they included Camp Cromwell as a developable property. The reservoir on Chimney Rock Road is developable property. So the Richard Hall, right?
Mental health.
So the number in our Bridgewater's plan going from 474 to 417 is largely reflected on saying, hey, state, even though we might disagree on the factors and we might disagree on the overall concept, that's the law, we have to comply with it, but you miscalculated what our capacity to build is because you're including property that just is not developable. It's open space property, all the stuff I just mentioned. So that's what they'll look at, and the court will review it. If anybody, there's interested parties out there who disagree, they'll have an opportunity to file an opposition and say, no, Bridgewater's wrong, number should be, something different. And then in end of March, we'll have the number that will go towards our plan.
And if I may, the issues with the state with these calculations, this is not a Bridgewater issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democratic issue. As of this morning, 85 municipalities have filed formally disputing the numbers given to them by the state. And again, not Republican, not Democrat. The Democratic mayor of East Brunswick, in one of the newspaper articles today, New Jersey rushed, miscalculated land estimates for affordable housing, mayor says, is the headline. East Brunswick has been very critical. Millburn has been very critical. As the mayor said, we would be building houses down the center median of Route 22 in the grass strips. There's close to about 100 different properties in Bridgewater that the state says are buildable. Some of them that are buildable are isolated pieces of property less than 2,500 square foot in size. You'd be living in a shed there. It's mind-boggling how they did these calculations, but...
Thank you, Tim. Alan, do you have, I know you want to say something.
I'll wait till we bring it up.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the council at this point? Come on up, please. Hi.
Hello, Carolyn Joya. Nice to see everyone tonight, especially you, very much. There is an Exhibit A, I believe, that was supposed to be attached to the resolution. Is there any way the public can get access to Exhibit A, which I believe is the topology report, which supports how you came up with the 417 number? Maybe it just wasn't attached.
No.
Yeah, we have it. It has to be, by law, it has to be posted online after the council adopts
We'll
it
put it on
tonight.
the web.
So it will be.
Exhibit A?
Yes.
Be there? Okay.
Yes. By law, it has to be. We have to publish for the public once it's adopted, assuming that the the council does in fact adopt the resolution that we
Okay.
expect.
That makes sense. I doubt I'll understand it, but I would like to kind of read through it. And then, Councilman Nogales, you had mentioned that there's an ordinance that we can't build independent accessory dwelling units on property. Is there also an ordinance?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that I said what?
You said that, I think there's an ordinance that in Bridgewater, we can't build,
Accessory units.
Accessory
That is
dwelling
correct. We do not have an
units.
ordinance permitting it.
oh,
It's not that we don't permit it, it's that we don't have one that does permit it. Kind of reverse psychology, but that's the way it works.
okay. And I think you were referring to independent units on a property. Are you also including renovating a garage, then renovating a basement to the point where you could rent it out and it would qualify as affordable housing and would reduce our mandated number?
That would not, to take a garage and convert it into a living unit is not permitted in our township right now.
That's what I wanted to know. I was curious on that. And then, finally, I thought I had another thing. Okay. I read something from the township, I guess it was with the schools, that, as this implementation of deportation and that whole thing, that if the superintendent would need to be notified before any student was removed from our schools. I was reading something about that, which got me to think, is our Bridgewater Police Department going to be working in conjunction with ICE in any of these situations? And at some point, do you think that we could have a presentation from the police department on what to expect if something like this were to happen in our town and what we can do about it or not do about it?
We'll leave that to the administrator to discuss it with the police chief in terms of the parameters of what specifically. Hey, don't forget, the police department is in charge of our security, so they don't publicly pronounce everything that's going on because they want to protect us, and the less they say sometimes, the better. But Mr. Pappas, do you have a comment on that?
This has been something that the chief and I have discussed. There hasn't been any incident, any situation that has warranted any action so far.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking more proactively, to know what to expect down the road, that's all.
I think a lot of this, in speaking to the chief, that a lot of this is directed by the state police. And any action would likely need to be in coordination with the state police. That's at least what he has told me he's been instructed to
Right.
expect.
I suppose it was when I heard the superintendent of the schools putting out the statement about what to
Well,
do. That's what made me think.
Recognize the superintendent and the Board of Education is a separate body entirely. We happen to collect the funds and pass it back to them, but there are separately, the Board of Education folks are separately elected by you and me and run the school system. We do not.
And the police department has some oversight from the state attorney general's office, which is different from the school district. So, I can't speak to the school district's comments, but, different situation than we have here. And the fact of the matter is, if the federal government comes in, the federal government is going to supersede anyone locally.
Understood. All right, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to come on in?
Sorry about the multiple glasses. I have to take care of that someday. Thank you again for everyone being here on this.
Name and address, please.
Manish Patel, 41 Schaefer Road. Thank you again. Thank you, Councilmember Pappas, for giving me your card. I'm going to reach out to you, and we're going to talk about...
Administrator.
Administrator.
Administrator, I'm sorry.
He's the township administrator.
We're going to talk about how to how I can help, how we as a community can help, maybe bring some business into the town, and that's maybe a little bigger in scope than what Chick-fil-A or another Starbucks can do. I did have 2 questions about the affordable housing dilemma, and one, I guess, hypothesis or theory. Could you change the rules allowing garage? I mean, it doesn't allow it today, but could the rules be changed to allow converting extra space?
As esteemed council said, our documents are living documents. We can make changes where we think it is consistent with the betterment of the township, so.
Right. I mean, without degrading the quality of life, et cetera, we don't want, I guess, strange. As I mentioned the last time I was here, we love this town and for multiple reasons, and want to do only what we can improve, but we also want to, give people opportunities to, and also get, alleviate some of the burden that the town may face in trying to accommodate affordable housing. So if there's quicker ways or better ways or simpler ways to do it by changing an ordinance, maybe that's something we can talk about. Second question was obviously our mall, which has been purchased. I'm not as in tune with all the latest details of what's planned. I know, people have discussed things like, oh, they might add apartments and things like that to the mall. How can that potentially alleviate this situation, at least, a small part of it?
The issue of rental apartments or residences in any main way, shape, or form at the mall has been discussed at council and with the mayor, and at this point, we've gone on record as saying we are not supportive of that at this time.
Okay, if there's an answer for it, is there a reason why we wouldn't do it? Mr.
Mall
Mayor,
was
or-
built with a developer's agreement that there were certain things that were agreed to when the mall was built, and that was one of the stipulations that was put in place. I think, again, tonight we're focusing on what our number is, and then June we come back with how do we accomplish that number.
Okay.
Tonight's affordable housing, though, is strictly on, we don't agree with the state's number of 474, we're submitting documentation and resolution at 417. And then by June, we have to come up with the plan, assuming the state accepts our number.
The answer to your
The
question.
numbers we are submitting or will be the number does not include any residents at the mall or any change in our zoning law, in our existing zoning. Always subject to change.
Yeah, the issue tonight, all these things are, the questions that you're asking and some of the residents have asked really get into how do we comply with the number? And the answer is we're going to look at everything in terms of, and the law gets complicated. So, they don't allow towns, as example, you might be able to do a certain number of senior or kind of age restricted, but you can't just say, we're going to do 417 age restricted units and think that's going to accomplish it. So we're going to look at every aspect of how do we meet the number with a variety of options. The concern with the mall as a whole, just separately, is that from my viewpoint, the mall is such an important commercial center to the town that I don't want to see it become, I don't want a developer to come in and think there's an easy, the easy solution is just to build apartments and wind up ultimately losing the mall as that main commercial center. Right now, in all the conversations I've had with the mall ownership about the short term, medium term, and even long term, they have not proposed to me anything with regard to housing on the site. There's some talking to community about it, but nothing from them. Right now, they continue to be committed towards commercial entertainment, restaurant, all the uses we see there to continue that. And if at some point in time they propose something different, obviously we'll address it. But there's a lot of concern about somebody coming in and putting in hundreds or even thousands of units and taking away from them all.
Thank you. And one last thing, again, this is probably better suited for the June discussion, whereas how to solve the challenge, but Mayor mentioned something that I heard. I think Councilman Orgalis also mentioned something about we'll have to get creative, and I'm going to be brief about this. My old college in Philly, I look at a college, I look at the way a township operates very similarly in terms of like the burdens they face and the revenue that they have coming in. Always a challenge. You know how college tuition has gone up? It goes up like taxes do, right? But regardless, a solution that the college did have was they took land that they owned. They didn't sell it to a developer. They gave it to a developer. The developer built dorms on it, and then the developer recouped their investment on it through the rent. And I'm sure that model's been played out in many other real estate scenarios as well. But it's one that came to mind when I think of the books and balance, I should say the budget of a town.
Yeah, one of the issues that comes up, so we look and we'll continue to look at our own inventory of property and then how do you manage it. Some of the private developers who will come in to build, if we give them land, whether we still own it or we sell it to them for $1 or however the ownership issues work, and there's different models for it, is if in order to make the finances work on something like that, oftentimes if it's all-inclusive affordable housing, then to make the finances work, you have to worry about, one, the quality of the building, because obviously there may be cutting some costs there. But the other concern is that a lot of those get federal grants. There's federal fundings and state funding to help build affordable housing. However, if you do projects that are funded with some of those federal grants, the federal government can then use those as, they can put homeless people there. They can use it as housing. It's not necessarily somebody who is, by taking the federal money, you give the federal government the ability to take empty units that are there and potentially use it for transitional housing or homeless housing or programs from folks who are getting out of jail that need to have housing, stuff that we may or may not want depending on where it's located and what the number of units and things like that. So there's additional concerns if you don't know exactly the scope of the project.
And if you stick around for a few minutes, in the ordinance that will be proposed tonight, we're actually taking a piece of property and donating for an organization to build a home. So stick around for 11A and you'll see. Okay.
All right. Well, I'm done there. Just want to leave you with one thought. Given all the toxicity and turmoil that surrounds us, which thankfully has not permeated this room tonight for sure, it's how wonderful it is that nobody need wait a single moment before starting to improve the world, which is, I think, what we're all trying to do here. And of course, that quote is attributed to Anne Frank. And I hope we all remember more about her and what she stood for, and thank her dad for having shared her diary with us. So good night, guys.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council, please?
Good evening. I have the last time I was here was at the end of December. I think the last meeting that we had. I think some of you gentlemen know that my concern really is the financial condition of Bridgewater. At the last council meeting, Mr. Pappas asserted that taxation levels were impacted by property assessments, and that fortunately in Bridgewater, our property values continue to appreciate from 7 to 9%. Both residential and commercial. However, when residential property values rise, it does not follow suit that our taxation levels would rise, because there's no correlation between property values rising and the cost to run Bridgewater, which is the municipal tax levy. In fact, our municipal taxes should stay the same and our tax rate should become lower. I did not try to draw any comparisons between the school budget and the corresponding tax levy to the school budget, and the municipal budget and the corresponding tax levy to the municipal budget. their separate budgets. The municipal budget is the only budget controlled by the mayor and this council. It is unclear what the intent of Mr. Pappas's point was, other than to obfuscate the questions I have concerning our township's finances and the over-reliance on the budget surplus, which this council, not me, has called out as an issue in its own audit, which is submitted to the state and clearly visible on the town's website. So I wanted to clarify for the record and the benefit of the public, it is not my opinion, but the facts. In 2019, the municipal tax levy rose 1.94%. In 2020, it rose 1.46%. In 2021, 4.01%. In 2023, 5.07%. And in 24, it more than doubled to 11.7%. It also is a fact that over the last 2 years, this administration has delivered the budget late, months beyond when it is required. And an over-reliance on the budget surplus is what is concerning and brings me to conclude that our financial house is on fire here. My question tonight is, in 2025, what are you doing to reverse this trend, relying less on surplus depletion and keeping our municipal taxes low? Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the council, please come forward.
I'm sorry, I forgot to do that last week. Jen Lochran, 716 Falcon Court. It was explained maybe last meeting that like one affordable housing unit could equal up to like 10 like regular units. Is that true?
One to four. For every one affordable housing unit, if you did it by traditional funding, traditional building, they would build 4 market rate units.
My math definitely did math. So, so what is that in total then? With 417, that would be like 1,600.
Yeah.
1,668. If you got 25%.
No, it'd be 2,000, but just about 2,100 units.
Okay.
You're saying 20%.
Yeah, 20%.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Out of every 5.
Because 10% or 4,000 seems really staggering. Still, that's a lot of units. So I'm just going to probably repeat what I said last time, which is just ask, you know, as you look into June, for consideration for public space, non-motorized forms of transportation, safe routes, especially for bikes and pedestrians. And I guess I'd be remiss if I didn't mention to build a skate park, but thank you. Appreciate your time.
Anyone else, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Bucko. I live at 543 Berrywood Lane. And actually, would like to talk further about the budget. Specifically, I've been looking through the last couple of years and in preparation for, budget season coming up. And I couldn't help but notice that from 2023 to 2024's budget, there are 46 fewer employees. Now, as a employee in the private sector who's gone through several rounds of layoffs, I'm sure it was very troubling to have to cut the headcount of the town's workforce. It's never a fun thing to do, and obviously impacts people's lives very strongly. But From 2023 to 2024, the town also added 9 new supervisors at a cost of $1.3 million. Now, with 46 fewer rank and file employees, these new supervisors were supervising -5 employees each. What are they actually doing with our tax dollars? The tax levy, as a previous speaker noted, went up from $24.4 million to $27.2 million, an 11.6 or 11.7% increase. That increase has been able to be masked because the aggregate property values went up from $9.3 billion to about $10.7 billion, a 14% increase. And as we all know, simple math, the numerator goes up, the denominator goes up also, it can even out. But then if you dig deeper into the numbers, the residential property values increased by 24%. The commercial values only increased by 4%, and the industrial actually went down by 77%. This means that the residential share of the tax burden went from 72% in 2023 to 79% in 2024. So I have to ask, what is the town doing with our tax dollars? And where is it all going? And why are the residents of this town bearing the burdens of what appears to be significant overspending? Now, obviously, residential users are residents use more town services. They use the schools, police probably, other township services. So obviously we need to balance the growth of the residents with other categories, commercial, industrial, the categories that will ultimately use fewer township services. But I can't help but wonder if the mayor's just say no attitude to development is scaring away would-be investors into our town. How many businesses has he driven away? We could have been reaping the benefits of recreational marijuana either through retail sales or grow facilities, which would have netted us money, revenue from that. But the mayor went against the opinion of the voters and said that we shouldn't have that in Bridgewater. So, in closing, my question for the committee here is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do to shore up the finances of Bridgewater? And why is it on the backs of the taxpayers? Why is all this overspending falling onto the backs of the taxpayers? Thank you.
I would offer one comment, and part of the problem is in some of the major complexes. I'll take the Ethicon site and the Sanofi site up 202, 206. They left to go someplace else, or they cut down significantly. It's not the case that we're driving people out of town. It's they want to do something else, and many of the larger complexes are really feeling the heat where people are working from home.
Absolutely, I certainly agree with that, and the sooner the realization comes across that big sprawling corporate campuses are just not in style anymore. It's not something that's being demanded.
It's an issue that this township needs to cope with, that the people who run businesses in the township need. Thank you for your.
That is absolutely true. But at the same time, it is the responsibility of the mayor and this council to attract those businesses that will invest in the town and not drive them away.
We're well aware of that. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the
Council
council?
President, if I could just comment briefly, there's a couple things that certainly can be open for debate, except that, the facts are just slightly off with some of the comments that were just made. As a threshold matter, the idea that businesses aren't coming to Bridgewater is just factually inaccurate. We have Thor Equities is just building a huge facility, a new building on 22206. Ingredion is here with its corporate headquarters. Avanos just got approved by the planning board. So we have companies that are continuing to build bring their national headquarters. Solaris has, building their cell therapy, major manufacturing here in Bridgewater that just opened. So the idea that companies aren't coming to Bridgewater, or there's not been, new businesses that are not only just coming here but growing here, is simply not accurate. As a threshold matter, we still have challenges with major campuses, but we've seen some of that improve already, and there's plans, and hopefully we'll have more and more of the biotech companies continuing to come here, including the company that just started that's doing the CO2 emissions on Milltown Road, that has its national development company here in Bridgewater. That's state-of-the-art CO2 emissions cleaning facilities right here. So the other part of it, just to respond, just remember that the tax levy is the amount of money that's collected from taxes, but that's not necessarily tied to spending, it's tied to revenue. So if we have a federal grant or funding from the mall or funding from hotel revenues, which goes down, then you need to make it up. So sometimes the shift between the tax levy is not because of changes of spending, can be in part because of loss of income from other non-taxable revenue sources. The comment about the supervisors, we did not lay off 46 employees. I don't think we laid off anybody last year. The number of changes, if you saw them in the budget, could have either been that we didn't fund positions that were already on the budget, either because they've been in the budget for years and we simply eliminated the position that wasn't filled by somebody. It could have been because of attrition. Somebody retired, we may not have backfilled the position. There's any number of reasons, but we have not laid off any employees since 2020. The first year that I was here was the only year we ever laid off any number of employees. So the numbers there are not reflective of that. So I think that was kind of the comments there. The tax assessments, just to be clear, the tax assessor is an independent, works for the township, but is independent. In other words, we don't control the assessments. They're controlled by the county. They're technically a county employee, so they're independent. So we can't go out and say to the tax assessor, I think a property is worth X dollars, or we want you to shift, balance. The tax assessor is independent.
Isn't he?
Yes, so it's a whole different, it's like a municipal court judge. They might be part of the township, but they're not controlled by the administration from the standpoint of policymaking. They're intentionally independent to make sure that they're immune from the political process of, that could go along with assessing properties. And last but not least, I am absolutely against recreational marijuana in Bridgewater, have been and will continue to be.
Thank you, Mayor. Anyone else wishing to address the council? We need folks the first time, please. John, did you want come on up?
John Arcolio, Washington Valley Road. I want to congratulate the mayor for his possible promotion to a legislative seat in Trenton. I know he's worked decades for this and for the public good. Part of his election promise in 2019 was a 5-year road rebuilding project. I think we're in year 5. I think everybody appreciates the potholes, but some people will look at the town's taxes and the debt and will say, well, there's a trade-off for that. We've put a lot of debt on, we put a lot of interest on, we made bad decisions in terms of interest rates during the pandemic. We didn't lock in when the rates were extremely low, below 1%. But now we're in the 5th year, and if the mayor's not with us anymore, I'd like to consider what should be the absolute number for road repaving this year and going forward? We may want to look at that as a combined, thought process, this year, next year, and ongoing, because we did raise it dramatically. We've benefited from the raise. I think we now have to sort of look at the next 5 years. And that's all I've just got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has not yet had the opportunity to address the council? Okay. Second bite of the apple.
Thank you, Mr. Norgalis. There's 2 points that I want to make. The first being...
Please state your name and address.
My name is Dan Zielinski, and I live at 715 Chimney Rock Road. There's 2 points that I want to make. The first being that years ago, and I believe there were members on this council that voted in favor of it, would have kept Sanofi in Bridgewater through a development called the Center for Excellence. And something happened along the way, and we didn't meet what the needs were of that company, which was in a growth mode at the time, and they went to Morris County, and we lost one of the highest tax providers that we had in Bridgewater. And so to say that businesses are just leaving on their own is not entirely true. The second point that I want to make, and I don't know that I really disagree with Mr. Mensch about recreational marijuana in Bridgewater Township, but I believe it was somewhere in the vicinity of 65% of the voters in Bridgewater voted in favor of it. And I think when voters vote in favor of something, it should be the government's responsibility to act on that vote. And while recreational dispensaries in Bridgewater might not be the best idea, there are a number of other businesses that are related to the cannabis industry, like grow facilities, as the previous resident mentioned, as well as testing facilities, both of which would have netted Bridgewater revenue from the cannabis business, as those grow facilities and the testing facilities do business with other municipalities, and that's where the tax income comes from. Thank you.
Thank you for your insight. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Seeing no movement, could I have a motion to close public input?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. President, just the Santa Fe property taxes have stayed the same whether they were there or not because of the agreement that was in place in terms of they still pay the same property taxes from when they initially left on that facility. And just wanted to point that out.
Alan, did you second?
He did.
Okay. All those in favor of closing input?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we are closed to the public. Thank you. We're now up to item 11. There are public hearing and final actions. There are none for item 10. Number 11, introduction of ordinances. I'll read it as follows. 11A, an ordinance authorizing the sale of property known as Lot 15 in Block 477 on the Bridgewater Township tax map and located at 901 Route 202-206 to Novell Main Street Urban Renewal LLC of 610 Anderson Avenue, Cliffside Park, New Jersey, as the buyer for a nominal consideration of $100 pursuant to NJSA 40A:12-21I to construct an affordable housing. Mr. Pappas or Mayor, did you want to offer any insight at this? We have with us our affordable planning person, Darlene Green. She may not want to acknowledge that she's here, but she has been laboring on the affordable housing issue for many, many months, and is to her credit the reason we've been able to winnow the 474 down to 417 is because of her personal insight in terms of literally almost going property by property.
Mr. President, if I could, since Ms. Green is here, maybe she could just come up and just briefly describe this project.
Good evening, everyone's Arlene Green of Colliers Engineering and Design. Tonight in front of you, this ordinance would allow the sale of a township-owned property that was actually bought with trust fund money. So this property, whether you adopt this ordinance or introduce this ordinance tonight or not, has to be eventually used for affordable housing because it was purchased with trust fund monies. Novell is an organization that builds 100% affordable housing, typically across the northern half of the state. I have worked with them in other communities. What they're proposing on this site is what would appear as a single-family home, which is permitted in the underlying zone, but inside it would house developmentally disabled individuals, which is a permitted use in the zone. The way the affordable housing rules are currently written, the township would receive 1 credit per bedroom created within that unit, and because it is a facility for special needs individuals, the home would also be eligible for bonus credits. So there is a possibility that we could receive, if it's a 4-bedroom group home, 8 credits for one site that looks like a single-family home from the outside.
And although Ms. Green mentioned that the original plan was for 4 bedrooms in this group home, there is consideration on the part of Noreen. I've talked at length with their managing partner that they will attempt to go to 5 or even 6 if possible. The rules change between 5 and 6 by the state, but I'm very enthusiastic that this will be a very beneficial deal and addresses the issue that was raised before. Here we have a piece of property, and it has some constraints. It has a stream running through it, but as Darlene says, it was bought with affordable housing trust fund money and has to be used for that, and now we have an opportunity to put a spade in the ground and make it happen. Does anyone have any questions on that? I know we've talked about it at length.
I'll move the introduction of 11A.
Okay, could we have a
Second it.
second on the introduction? A roll call, please.
Councilman Kudilla,
Yes.
Councilman Ring,
Yes.
President Nogales.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm not used to being second.
For resolutions, now I want to move Resolution K up to right now so that Ms. Green can leave. She's graced us with her attendance here, but we want to have her around. But item K is the resolution of the council. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, Grace needs to set the public hearing. I beg your pardon.
That's okay. Final action is scheduled for February 20, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. here in the municipal courtroom. Public inspection of this ordinance is available on the township website, the bulletin board, and in the clerk's office.
Okay, K, resolution of the council of the Township of Bridgewater committing to round 4 present and prospective need affordable housing obligations as required by the March 24th, 2024 law signed by Governor Murphy, PL 2024 C2, hereinafter abbreviated as A4.
Council President, I think as we've discussed before, this is the resolution which is being proposed based on all the hard work of our professionals and to help us learn how to, or figure out how to manage it. Essentially, as we've really kind of discussed really ad nauseum at this point, proposes, the state gave us a number of 474. Under the law, the DCA numbers are advisory numbers. It's non-binding, but it's the DCA that says, well, this is what we think it is, and then you can do your own analysis and see if you agree. That analysis has been done, and under our agreement, it's less. So I think Darlene, I believe, has some more information and can provide to the council and the public, but this is the resolution that we need to pass in order to comply with the law and move the
And
process.
the number is 417. Now, I know Darlene has, I won't call it a presentation because she can talk as little or as much as she likes in terms of giving us a capsule as to what has happened in her life over the past 14, 16 months on this issue.
It's not a dull moment, that's for sure.
Oh, you have a mic? Okay,
Got a mic,
good.
as long as it's working. So I have to admit, next time I want to go first because you guys must have gotten a copy of my presentation and memorized it. But I would like to add a little bit of finer points to some of the items. So as mentioned earlier, this is a process that's been going on in the state of New Jersey for decades. It started back in 1975 when the Supreme Court mandated that every town has a constitutional obligation to provide a realistic development potential for affordable housing. After that occurred, there were a series of lawsuits. It was the Wild West, and the legislature realized that this is not going to work. And so they created the Fair Housing Act in 1985 to provide an administrative process for communities to comply with their constitutional obligation. To oversee that process, the Fair Housing Act created the Council on Affordable Housing, also known as COA. I'm sure you've heard of them, read about them in the newspaper. COA was tasked with adopting regulations and promulgating affordable housing obligations. The Fair Housing Act and the court process that we participated in the third round and the process that we're about to participate in the fourth round always carried with it the carrot and the stick approach. And that's been mentioned a little bit tonight. The carrot, whether it was through COA or in the last round through the courts or here in this fourth round that we are entering, was town, come in and voluntarily comply with your constitutional obligation, and we, whether it's COA, the courts, or the program, will give you immunity from builder remedy lawsuits. You get to choose how to address that obligation as a municipality. Conversely, the stick has always been and continues to be, do nothing, town, and you'll still have that obligation, but instead a builder, and they don't have to be the property owner, they could be merely a contract purchaser to file a builder remedy lawsuit, can go to a judge and say, Judge, this town is not complying with their constitutional obligation and I am going to help them out. A builder remedy is blind to your zoning. It's blind to your master plan. It does not care if your schools are full. It does not care if you have a fire truck to reach to the top of the building. A judge somewhere else makes the award, and that's the remedy, the fix. And so I know a member of the public asked earlier, what are the advantages and disadvantages? The choice before towns, every town in the state of New Jersey, by tomorrow, is do you want to control your future, or do you want some developers to control your future? That's what this boils down to. It's the carrot and the stick. So COA started with the first round in 1987, and the rounds were 6-year rounds. The first round was from 87 to 1993. The second round was from 1993 to 1999. And in these 6-year rounds, towns were given a number, they had to put together a plan, and then implement the plan. COA realized that is not long enough to actually do all those steps. So for the start of the third round, they said, we're gonna change this process, and it's gonna be a 10-year round, so it gives towns more times to actually comply. The third round was to commence in 1999 and last 10 years, but unfortunately, COA's third round rules could not pass judicial muster, and ultimately, the third round ran from 1999 to 2025. So instead of a 10-year period, we had a 26-year period. In the middle of that time, the Supreme Court stripped COA of their power in 2015, and they returned affordable housing compliance back to the courts. So we rewound the clock to pre-1985, and towns were ordered to file a declaratory judgment action by July of 2015 or face the possibility of a builder remedy lawsuits. They continued that same carrot and stick approach. In response to this, Bridgewater filed a declaratory judgment action in July of 2015, and we received final amended judgment of repose and compliance last year. So the members of the public are aware, as we sit here tonight, the township already has 2 existing obligations that we have prepared a housing plan which has been approved by the court. We have our prior round obligation, which is both the first and the second round, which is 713 affordable units. The third round, which is 1,414 units. Both of those are addressed as we sit here tonight because of Bridgewater's proactive efforts. As mentioned by the governing body, We knew there was going to be a fourth round, but we didn't know it was going to unravel this way. Last year, the governor signed this new bill, A4, and that officially abolished the Council on Affordable Housing. It changed the process for compliance. It amended the bonus credits, and it set forth deadlines that are extremely important. The reason we're sitting here tonight is the January 31st deadline, which I have termed a shotgun deadline, because if towns do not comply by this deadline, they will automatically lose immunity. Automatic loss of immunity did not happen when COA was functioning. Automatic loss of immunity did not happen in the third round when you were in front of the court. There was a process before a town could lose immunity. So this new amended Fair Housing Act is dramatically different than prior rounds because of the shotgun deadline of tomorrow. And the second shotgun deadline is in June, when we have to have our housing plan adopted. That deadline, if we do not meet that deadline, once again, automatic loss of immunity. So in order for towns to comply with tomorrow's deadline, the bill charged the Department of Community Affairs with calculating the fourth round obligation. They issued their report in October, and they assigned Bridgewater a rehabilitation obligation of 130 and a fourth round obligation of 474. The obligation starts at the state level for the fourth round number. For the state of New Jersey, DCA has assigned an affordable housing obligation of over 84,000 affordable units. To give the public some understanding of how is that even relatable, if you look at the last 10 years, how many total COs were issued in the state of New Jersey, in total, blind to whether it's affordable or market rate? A little over 160,000 total COs were issued in a 10-year period. That means that the obligation that has been assigned to the municipalities is more than 50% of the total number of COs issued in the state of New Jersey. The number is bloated, but that's the number that the towns are stuck with. After the fourth round number is assigned to the state, it's divided to the 6 affordable housing regions. Our region that we're located in, Somerset, Hunterdon, and Middlesex, has the 4th largest affordable housing assignment. Once your region has a number, it is then allocated to each municipality except for urban aid communities through an average of 3 allocation factors. The first allocation factor looks at equalized assessed non-residential valuation, specifically the change in value of your commercial and your industrial properties between 1999 and 2023. So the more your non-residential properties grew in value, the more affordable housing units you're assigned. They use the value change as essentially a proxy for job growth. The second allocation factor is the income capacity. Here, DCA utilized census data, and they looked at 2023 median household income. And your municipality's income, along with every other municipality's income in the region, is compared to the lowest median household income for your region. So the higher that difference is, the more affordable housing units you're assigned. Lastly is the land capacity allocation. And here DCA was tasked with utilizing data from DEP. They specifically were required to use their land use land capacity data set. That is based on a 2020 aerial image that DEP took and then assigned different land use categories. DCA looked at forested areas, I should say the classifications for forested areas, shrubland areas, farmland, and other barren lands. So those were the categories that they looked at to determine what is developable. The land capacity factor for Bridgewater is 2.59%. The income capacity factor is 4.02%, and the equalized non-residential valuation is 5.64%. So when you average those three together, that results in 4.08%. And that is then multiplied by the regional obligation, and that's how you end up with a number of 474. As the mayor noted, these obligations are non-binding, but you have to work within the framework of the formula. We can't just pick a number out of thin air. I was actually asked that last night. Can't we just pick a different number? No. We cannot. But what we can do is scrutinize the data that DCA put forth. They issued a very detailed spreadsheet, and the township retained topology to go through the land capacity data, which was published eventually after many OPA requests. And the Department of Community Affairs has determined that there are over 267 acres that are developable. That number, after topology reviewed it, is overstated. As mentioned, the state has identified portions of Camp Cromwell, deed-restricted land owned by both the county and the township, multiple sections of the median of Route 22. There are areas of common HOA land that have been identified. Land inside of the jug handles is identified as developable. Detention basins are also determined to be developable by the state. So you can get a sense of what their analysis showed. So topology reviewed all of that information, and they determined that only 113 acres of the 267 are actually developable. When you input the corrected acreage into the DCA formula, that's what modifies the fourth round obligation from 474 to 417. So the resolution that's in front of the governing body tonight will accept the conclusions in the DCA report regarding the rehabilitation obligation of 130 and the fourth round income and non-residential valuation capacity factors. The resolution is correcting the overstated fourth round land capacity data, which would yield a fourth round obligation of 417, not 474. In addition, you will note there are multiple reservations in the resolution. We are reserving the right to conduct a windshield survey to potentially lower the rehabilitation obligation. We are also reserving the right to conduct a vacant land adjustment and or seek a durational adjustment if we find there is a lack of water or sewer to construct all of these units. Those are permitted adjustments that towns can seek if they cannot achieve their fourth round number. All of those adjustments would be part and parcel of any housing plan that we adopt. So those are done after the fact. The purpose of tonight is to essentially set the number, and then from there, we can take adjustments as part of the housing plan. That's my summary. I'm happy to take any questions that the governing body might have.
Can you talk a little bit about, so tonight we approve this, maybe just now to June,
Now to June. Well,
when you get no sleep.
there's no more sleep. So anyone can file a challenge in the challenge window that will last until February 28th. So that could be a developer, it could be Fair Share Housing Center, it could be a resident. If by chance no one challenges our resolution, then our number is established by default on March 1st. If there are challenges, the program is supposed to review all of them and have them adjudicated within 30 days. I would not hold my breath for
Well,
that.
if 85 have already challenged as of, well, I'm sorry, 85 towns have already disputed their numbers as of today. Yeah.
It would be very difficult. And what is concerning is the way that they wrote the legislation. It did say that even if your number is not finalized by June 30th, you still have to adopt a housing plan. So there is a possibility that towns in the state will be forced to adopt a housing plan even though they don't know what their number is.
Now, would it be on the 417 or the 474? Or we don't know?
We don't know.
Okay.
But,
Clear as mud.
clear as mud. So I would encourage the township to continue the proactive work that we've been doing, not wait for our number to be finalized. Instead, use our 417 as a proxy and figure out a plan. Because the housing plan is the only master plan element that requires both a hearing in front of your planning board and endorsement by the governing body, because it contemplates expenditures. So that means 2 public meetings. And I am sure, just like this week where I had 10 council meetings, I am sure that everyone's going to want to have all of their planning board and council meetings the last week of June. So there's going to have to be a lot of planning to back into that. Housing plans are very detailed, and they can include hundreds of pages of appendices to prove what we're submitting. In addition to that housing plan, we're going to have appended to it a new spending plan for our trust fund. If we are doing any rezoning, whether it is for inclusionary development, for accessory apartments, for any other mechanism, all of those ordinances will have to be drafted and attached to that document. So it is very likely for a town of this size with a number of over 400 that your housing plan could be somewhere with all the appendix documents from 500 to 1,000 pages long.
Wow.
There's a lot of work to be done.
Any other questions for Catherine, guys?
Alan, any questions on your part?
I have no questions. I have an opinion, but no questions.
If there are no questions at this point, I would entertain a motion for 12K.
Not something that I want to say, excited to do, but, necessary evil. I'll move.
This is a gun to our head.
It's someone else deciding what's best for Bridgewater and not allowing us to decide what's best.
We have a motion. Alan, will you second?
Yeah, I have a second and a comment.
Oh, proceed with your comment, please.
Most of the evening, a lot has been said about the affordable housing requirement. And I've been quiet on it till this point. However, I just want to publicly say, I don't like it. I think it's terrible. While I know what, I say that because of what we have done in Bridgewater for the past 20 years or so regarding affordable housing, the number of units that we've installed, we've complied with, we met our allocations. And I think I find it unacceptable to have somebody from Patterson pushing legislation to tell us what we need to do. My question is, who in this room would like to move to Patterson? I know I wouldn't. A lot has been said, and I've read some documentation from DCA on this, what the foundation of the argument it is. And one of the comments was we want to make it so that people can move where they want to go and move. As far as I know, when my family moved to Bridgewater, they decided to move to Bridgewater, and they worked hard to make it happen. My father at the time, he was a garage mechanic, making about $7,000 a year as a salary, but yet my mother and father together worked to make it so we could move to Bridgewater from Hudson County. I have the opinion that this is being pushed by Hudson, Passaic, Essex County, Camden, and so forth. And I think I'm upset. It bothers me that people that don't live here are telling us what we're going to do because we want to change the way you live. Now, that may sound cruel, and it's not meant to be. It's an opinion. It's my opinion that, when I look at that argument and think about people should have the right to live where they want to, I'd like to live on Sunset Ridge in Bridgewater. The view is great. Realistically, I know that I can't.
There's a lot on here for where the water tower is for a home.
Hey, you got indoor sprinklers too. But I know that's not possible, and you know what? I'm very happy where I am. I don't want to see somebody say, well, Councilman Cordola wants to live on Sunset Ridge, so let's pass legislation that will force that to happen. That's not the right way to do it. If I want to make it happen, it's up to me to find a way to work, get the income to make it happen. Along the way, I realized that I have an obligation as a councilman. My obligation as a councilman goes to every single resident in Bridgewater Township. Residents who may share the opinion that I have, and residents who may have a different opinion. But I do know, having said that my responsibility is to listen to everybody's opinions, listen to their arguments. There are times, probably more than I want to admit, that my opinion somehow just isn't right. However, I do know that there are many times that the opinion that I have, based on what I would call common sense, does work, and I evaluate, contrary opinions against mine. And my obligation is to make a decision based on what I feel is best for Bridgewater Township and not best for Alan Cardilla. So, having said all that, and I apologize for the length of it, I will be voting to support 12K. I will be voting to support this resolution. However, I'm supporting it because we have to, not because I want to see this happen to Bridgewater Township. The repercussions for not supporting it are certainly not acceptable. We need to work to come up with a plan that, will work for Bridgewater. I think, Ms. Geiger, you asked what my number was. To be honest with you, you're not going to like it, but my number was 0. I do feel that somewhere along the way, we'll come to an agreement between 0 and 417. But that's the way I think and the way I feel I am approaching this resolution. Enough said.
Thank you, Alan. I think by this time, everybody knows my view on it, so I will not bore you with another recitation. Could we have the roll call, please, on 12K?
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. All right, we're moving to 12A, which is the appointment of Catherine Howes as Chief Municipal Judge for a 3-year term commencing on March 19th, 2025.
So moved.
Second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. 12B, authorizing the appointment of Michael Colaci, Esquire, from the law offices of Colaci Law Firm as the alternate municipal prosecutor for a term commencing on February 1st, 2025 and terminating on December 31st, 2025.
I'll move it.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. C is authorizing appointment of Township Planner Kathleen Sarmad, PP AICP of the Sarmad Planning Group, as principal planner for the update of the town's master plan in an amount not to exceed $20,000 for a 1-year term commencing on January 1st, 2025, to be funded from the Planning Division account.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. D is authorizing dispersal of $2,912 from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for additional renovations and repairs for 1, completed low and moderate income property through the Bridgewater Housing
Trust Fund.
Bridgewater Housing Rehabilitation Program to be funded from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
127,000 more to go? Yes. So moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please, on D.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. E is authorizing submission of a grant application to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs for the local recreation improvement grant for the ADA compliant equipment for the Bridgewater Park system in an amount up to $100,000 with a 5% cash match of the total project award. The 5% cash match will be funded from the Open Space Fund. I have a motion on E, please.
I'll move it.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. F is an award of contract to Ari LLC, 107 Bluebird Drive, number 10, Hillsborough, New Jersey, 08844, to provide information technology services for the period of January 1st, 2025 to December 31st, 2025, in an amount not to exceed $88,000 to be funded from the information technology account. Mr. Pappas, was there anything you wanted to add on that particular one?
No, just that it's gone well. This resolution actually expands their assistance to the police department, and really no increased cost overall. The funding that the police department has been utilizing to fund a vendor will be now consolidated into this one vendor, providing service to all township departments.
And they have been very successful in satisfactory performances, I understand. Could I have a motion on F, please?
I'll make that motion.
Second, please.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. G is an award of second-year renewal option for the HVAC contract to Air Systems Maintenance Incorporated, 718 Jefferson Avenue, Kenilworth, New Jersey, 07033, for HVAC quarterly maintenance services and repairs, if needed, to various township locations for the period of March 1st, 2025 through February 28th, 2026, in an amount not to exceed $34,900 to be funded from the building and grounds account.
Does that include the library?
Yes. Motion, please.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. I'd like to do consent on H, I, and J. H is authorizing release of the performance guarantee in the amount of $32,428 and acceptance of the site improvements for Northbridge Woodlawn LLC, Block 525, Lot 2 on 8081 Woodlawn Avenue. I is authorizing release of the performance guarantee in the amount of $20,525 and the acceptance of the site improvements for Gaelic Communications LLC, Block 557, Lot 1 at 1 Voke Drive. J is authorizing release of the performance guarantee in the amount of $2,993,456.40 and acceptance of the site improvements for the LTF Real Estate Company Incorporated, Block 411, Lot 39 at 145 Commons Way.
So moved, consent.
Okay, second. Okay, roll call, please, on H, I, and J.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. L, let me see, do we get J, K, L? Okay. L is objecting to the issuance of a permit renewal for the Bridgewater Resources Incorporated to operate the waste transfer station on Pahimas Lane without updated studies and information. Mr. Pappas, would you weigh in on that, please, sir?
Yes, that facility's been in existence for years. They are requesting a renewal, and we have expressed opposition. One of the concerns is with the increased traffic that we've seen in that part of the community since this present license was established is 20 years old. The last time that they have undertaken a traffic analysis is 2004, and that is one of the reasons that we're objecting. There are other concerns. There's the expectation that with their stated intention to bring trash from New York through Kearney, through both truck and rail, will likely increase the number of hours per day, perhaps to a 24-hour-a-day operation, which would have other impact to the community.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Could I have a motion, please?
On this, I know, apologize, I'm trying to find the exact section. We're going to send a copy of the resolution to the governor and commissioner. I think we should also send a copy of this, to our neighbors. I think Somerville, Manville, our neighboring towns need to be aware. Bound Brook,
That's a good idea.
There's a huge potential impact to not only Bridgewater, but to the neighboring towns with rail cars and now garbage being trucked from New York City here. So with that modification, I will move 12L.
Second, please.
I'll second it.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Cordilla?
Yes.
Councilman Ring?
Yes.
President Nogales?
Yes. Okay, we're up to item number 13, which is closed session litigation. Be it resolved by the Bridgewater Township Council that we will now, this body will hold a closed session to discuss litigation through the Somerset County Corporate Center, Warren Township, Duesburg, and Flores versus Bridgewater. When and if the matter discussed become public record, this will be made known to the public at that time. The public is excluded from said meeting, and further notice thereof is dispensed with, all in accordance of Section 8 and 4A of the Open Public Meetings Act. Could I have a motion to go to closed session, please?
I'll move it. All right, I'll second it. Do we anticipate any action?
Thank you. We do not anticipate any action of this body, so at the conclusion of the closed session, we will simply adjourn. But thank you. All those in favor of the close? Aye. Okay, we are closed.
Did you add the third one to the resolution? I wasn't listening. Okay.
Oh, okay. All right, we're back on the air. We have completed our closed session, and we are now at the point of adjournment where there is no additional business. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
I think
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I did that
Well,
ordinance, so you had something to vote on.
We, Suzanne,
Be
we're
back
off
7
now?
days from tonight.